have a specific program. It's been a standing program. We don't have a specific use for the fiscal year or proposed use for the fiscal year. It's just been a standing program within the downtown TERS.
Okay. Okay. So we won't be carrying those numbers as part of the budget?
If I mean, like I said, we've put it there in case there was a need. We don't have a specific activity that's going to be used for that, so we could remove it from the budget if the committee recommends that.
Okay. All right. Could you put that slide back up? So is that the same is true for all four of those?
So all four of those are basically standing programs that the DMD utilizes as needed. I don't know, Alyssa, do you want to talk a little bit to it?
So for the traffic and planning analysis, it seems like the program or the projects that we've scoped out have been more costly, so we actually moved those to one-time project expenditures or streetscape expenditures this year. Downtown vacant building program we do utilize to stabilize vacant buildings, especially ones that are becoming blighted or people are breaking into, but that's a reimbursement-based program, so we'll make the repair and then submit documentation to pull from the fund if we need it. Same thing with the right-of-way utilization. So those are definitely necessary. I think if more activation is being done with parking, that's another one that could potentially be cut. Period.
Okay, well, I just, you know, we did a huge traffic analysis several years ago.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know if it needs to be updated, but I don't see why we're carrying $100,000 in the budget for that if we're not going to utilize it.
Yes, sir. I believe that the scope of work the scopes of work that we have identified have basically grown beyond this budget, and so it would be appropriate for us to move, either move the other projects we're doing into this line item or eliminate the line item together.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to break down a little bit into the programs that were just mentioned. So we're proposing the rooftop activation program get funded in a $1 million fund. Now, the one that says here, TERS number 3 project plan, this one is going to be your flex account. And what I mean by that is that if any of the programs, either we exceed the expense that is needed to pay them out, the $750,000 is utilized to cover some of that difference. So that is going to be your flex account. Your targeted vacant property improvements, that one we are suggesting a $1.3 million allocation. Your commercial finish out, we are suggesting $48,000 on that one, just shy of $50,000. Your downtown living initiative, we are suggesting $116,000. Your project-specific development, we are suggesting $261,000. And your downtown vacant building program, again, this is one of those standing ones. That's where we're suggesting $50,000. The same goes with the parking updates with the standing $25,000. Oh, and I guess I missed that one. The traffic pattern analysis, again, that's the one that we just recently discussed at $100,000. So there is a longer list, and this is just a continuation of it. The streetscape and safety improvements, that one we are suggesting $2.3 million be allocated for next year's budget. The DMD agreement, I'll go over in just a brief second in full detail about what that $875,000 covers. So I'm just going to put a thumbtack on that one, and I'll be back on this one. The management professional services, we are requesting $5,000. The DMD right-of-way, along with city right-of-way and the park maintenance, all are suggested to go into $50,000 each for next year. And a one-time special projects, we are requesting $55,000. Bike patrol, this is just, of course, to make sure that the downtown keeps that same vibrant and safety image, $100,000, and the clean team assessment match, $330,000. There is a transfer that we are requesting from the general fund of $380,343. And as I mentioned, we can go in a little bit of a breakdown of what that $875,000 entails. So about $450,000 of it goes into personnel expenses, and that covers the development manager, placemaking manager, the economic development and placemaking assistant, and a portion of the executive director's salary. The clean team contract is $277,000. The supplies and equipment for that is $6,000. Office expenses is $26,000. Technology and expenses for the website that was recently created is $40,000. Accommodations, $4,000. And professional development training for staff is going to be $24,000. There are some consultant studies that are being suggested in the amounts of $13,500. And the construction and mitigation along with the right-of-way, well, actually, the construction mitigation, $10,000, and the right-of-way and parks, we're suggesting $20,000. Are there any questions so far? Let me just slow it down a little bit.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's not showing me who's, I apologize. But
Okay. Alyssa, I know we talked about the possibility of looking at the downtown safety team, or whatever you want to call that. What line is that? Am I missing that?
Oh,
Is that
yeah,
under the
actually.
Bike patrol? or-
Yeah, so there are a couple of recommended projects that are outside of this proposed budget,
Okay.
and Alyssa will actually go through that in just a second.
Okay, so we're not there yet.
Yeah,
Ahead of
yeah,
us.
so these are just the ones that we're, again, just requesting for regular maintenance type of deals for next year. But then there are some
Okay.
additional proposed projects that, again, Alyssa will go through.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. Any other questions?
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wondered about the park projects, what that entail. Like, what are we looking at? It was the last page that you showed on the budget,
Park maintenance?
park maintenance. But, like, is that just where the flower?
There are various items. We often have to do irrigation repair, upgrades, repair lights, various items to keep the parks in good working condition. So we have these funds available so that we can proactively make those repairs and keep the parks functional.
Does that include Artesian Park?
Artesian and La Retama are the currently authorized parks. We did expand it to include Sherrill Park, where the World War I memorial is, Norma Urban Park, and, Spawn Park, where the World War I memorial is, the degree of Sherrill Park and Norma Urban Park, but we have not proactively implemented any improvements there. La Retama and Artesian are where we're mainly trying to kind of hold our ground and keep those in good condition for the utilization of the public.
And do you see anything that in the horizon that would include, like, I know, do all of them have like a drinking water station or things of that nature? I'm not, I haven't visited.
There's a water fountain in La Retama Park. It's not always in working condition, so that's one of the items where we have these funds available in case we need to contact the plumber or work with the city or something needs to be outsourced and get it in repair. The irrigation lines are something that we're constantly working on keeping functional. And then additionally, the lights and electricity are things that we're constantly having to repair. People are constantly damaging them, so
Okay,
those are
so
some of
that
the...
is part of the park maintenance?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, just
Okay.
curious. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Alyssa, before you sit down, on page 6 on the downtown living initiative, are we sure that's going to cover?
Yes, sir. That is our committed payments based upon agreements that we already have in place.
Okay.
The $166,000 is what will be due this upcoming fiscal year for the North Water apartments, which I believe they're in their final stages. They've had some issues with the elevator. They have a temporary C of O. Other than that, they've been able to get people in the first floor, but of course, we need the project completed before we can complete the reimbursement process. So I believe within the next month, that should be done, and we'll be slated to issue payment to them.
Okay, okay,
Yes, sir.
very good. Thank you. I think that's it. Carry on.
All right. And actually, just going back to an earlier question about the parks, this is now, the tourist to DMD tourist expenses, we are looking at that $50,000 account, along with the right-of-way, which of course was previously mentioned, for $100,000. And also, down below on the second half of this slide, you do see an amount of $430,000 that is currently being expensed out of the general fund, and we are requesting that it be transferred from the TERS itself, or that it be utilized from the TERS. And that's going to be your assessment match, which is $330,000, and your bike patrol out of $100,000. So. Okay. So here on this next slide, we're going to see a list of proposed projects that were initiated back in 2024. And onto your furthest right side-hand column, you're going to see the status of each. And then most recently, the storm Alberto did have an impact to the marina boat ramps, and we are suggesting this one that we allocate $218,000 to fix them, and just to kind of give you guys a side of the condition that they were left in. Here's a couple pictures where you guys can see how the storm impacted these, and we are requesting that we, again, utilize some funding to improve them and make them a little bit better, or make them useful again, I guess.
Peter, are these part of what's going to be replaced with our new docking systems?
No, sir. This is, we're just doing A, B, C, D, and L. So this is an additional
Addition to
project.
them?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the ones we're replacing are more in the center, the center T-head area.
Okay.
So this is not included in that project.
Where is this at?
This is on the L head. So if you go L head all the way around and terminate at the water's edge, that's where you'll find this.
Okay.
It's kind of directly across the boaters facility building that's there, the Jane's Tackle and Bait Shop.
Exactly. So these are the public boat ramps. These are the docks that are next to the public boat ramps. The great thing about this is if we can go ahead and include this in funding for this budget year, we'll be able to utilize the same fabricator that is going to be fabricating the rest of the piers. And so this will all match. It'll be the heavy-duty piers that we're using elsewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we're going to do this, let's do it to match what we're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah, Bellingham is the one that we
Bellingham,
do a
yeah.
change order with the current company and just included in the scope of work. The mobilization costs are already borne by the bigger project, so it'd be a savings overall if we include it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Good deal. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Right, and Councilman Roy, I believe you had some questions about upcoming projects, and actually, I'd like to, at this point, pass it on to Alyssa to go over some of the suggested requests that they have.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Arturo. Okay, the first item we have on the next slide. Okay, I can use this, okay. So here's an overview of all of the projects. I believe this is already included in the budget and numbers that have been presented. Yes, okay. So we have ADA improvements, Illuminando tree replacement, downtown safety, park and sound installation, and Taylor Street resurfacing. The ADA improvements is a first phase of an overall assessment that we conducted. We are in the process of reviewing this with the engineering department and some of the newer team members there to make sure that our implementation strategy is most optimal. But we identified over 94 areas in the downtown Marine Arts District that were not ADA accessible, which includes for strollers, for bikes, for people with bad knees, areas that were generally unsafe. So we had to we got an estimate for the first phase of these improvements, and we're calling phase one the area kind of where the cross street is Man Street. We are also hoping to utilize the scooter fund, but the $1 million will get us enough so we have some cushion for when these costs come in and we're implementing these projects. We can make sure we don't have to come back to you guys and add another 6 months to the authorization process once we're up and running with these improvements. So that is the ADA improvements. We went ahead and just plotted the cost estimates we've received versus the repairs that we identified, so that you can just see how that money is being distributed. I know $1 million is a sum of money, but it is, being implemented in different areas, and different treatments have different expenses. So it could be repairing a sidewalk to installing a crosswalk and ramps that were never there, which is the situation on Taylor and Chaparral Street, interestingly enough. Next, we have Illuminando tree replacement. This is something that was privately funded in 2021. We need to replace all of these lights every 3 years in order for these trees to continue to grow. Do I need to pause? Would you like me to pause?
I'm sorry.
Yes. Okay.
Councilman Roy, I apologize.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So, I'm trying to remember 2017, 2018 timeframe, when there used to be a program downtown for sidewalks where there was a grant. I think one of the first programs was a grant that allowed sidewalks to be repaired, and then the first story of the windows. right?
So it's part of our streetscape and safety program. It's if they expend a certain threshold, we would proactively go back and repair a sidewalk based upon the footage that was repaired for the streetscape program. So private investment commitment first, they make those improvements, and then we come back and finish the sidewalk. We've successfully executed it once. Some of the locations here are areas that do not have buildings adjacent to it. So a lot of this really came up with our Downtown Run Club. We discovered we were having people running in the street because some places don't even have sidewalks and aren't going to be developed. So that's some of the stuff that we're trying to correct.
So I guess it's the appropriate word, this is kind of filler, because no one would ever come up and claim those sidewalks because...
Yes, sir, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to just make sure that we're not...
Just
that we're
shifting
being
gears.
equitable in terms of how, if the program before, if you had a building there, then you could apply for that grant, but they had somewhat of a financial responsibility also.
Absolutely. And in that program, we were really taking existing sidewalks that were not in the best condition and upgrading the condition of the sidewalks. In this area in particular, it seems like there were some improvements made over the years, and there are just whole parcels where they didn't touch them. And I guess they anticipated development would occur, but it never did. So it's just been in that condition for a very long time.
So the land that's adjacent to these suggested areas, so is it not owned, is it privately owned?
Yes, yes, it is mainly privately owned.
So we're going to fix those sidewalks.
Because in downtown, pedestrian access and walkability is something that we're really trying to advocate for. We want people moving. We want that pedestrian traffic. I know in the rest of the city that the responsibility of the right-of-way is the adjacent property owner, but we also, I don't think, have minimums for like existing platted property. So we're just kind of in a conundrum. So TERS being able to be utilized for infrastructure, this seems like a good use of those funds to improve the condition, because it is our city that leaves the impression.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Councilman Hernandez.
Thank you. In your aspect to do ADA improvements, including ramps, sidewalk improvements, are you applying for any state or federal grants associated with ADA improvements?
No, sir. We do not have grant writing capacity in our team, and so that's not what we identified on our critical path.
Do we do that for our own city streets for grant writing for ADA improvements, or is it just a requirement?
Yeah, primarily through the MPO. We've received funding, so I'm not sure if we apply or if it's part of the overall process that we go through.
Okay, they're making improvements to city streets to do ADA improvements. There should be some funding allotted for that for making those improvements. Can we take a look at that and make sure that if we can save some money on this that could be repurposed for other things within the downtown, I think we could improve on getting access to funding.
Yes, sir. We'll take a look at it through the MPO and our own grant writer.
Okay, can you circle back with us on that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, is that it? Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Councilman Hernandez, because I was going to bring it up as well. There are millions and millions of dollars in federal funds that are doled out every year for ADA improvements. The state has grant money for this. So this is something we really need to look at through our grants department and see if we can find some either to supplement this or to add to it if we have other projects.
Well, yes. As indicated, the rest of the sections also need to be done.
There's lots of improvements that can be made. I realize that. But there are a lot of grant monies available for it.
Okay. We do have a grant writer, so we'll look into it.
Thank you very much, Councilman Klein.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree that we should be looking at all sources of funding possible, but I really have to give you props for taking this on. The ADA is 34 years old now, and so we're way behind the curve in trying to address this issue. Thanks so much for doing this. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so moving on into Illuminando, if we're I think we got plenty of good direction on the previous item. We need to replace the tree lights. So that's something that we're proposing. It was privately funded 3 years ago. It has made a significant improvement to perceptions of safety downtown. I've mentioned before it was featured in the International Downtown Association's best practices for public spaces, which was really great to have our work kind of featured in that way. So we want to make sure that we keep this running and we keep this in good condition.
Okay, before we leave the lighting,
Okay.
we've had discussion about this before, and so where are we at on our downtown lighting initiative?
We have circled back around with engineering. We are actually meeting with AEP and engineering on tomorrow.
Okay,
So, and then we'll find out what our options are to be able to move forward with that. And then we'll work with Alyssa and her staff on identifying which blocks we want to start on.
okay. Well, I hope we keep pushing this forward.
We are.
It's way behind.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, Heather and I are working on it together, so it's really going to be an it's going to be an AEP executed project. They will use their infrastructure, their lights, if they use any posts, and it's,
We'll just help fund it.
we're going to, so we're going to get that done, hopefully within the next couple of months.
Good.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Yeah.
very good.
Love it.
Charge on.
Okay, the next item we have is a line item. We'll of course come back to the board with our final details on this. We're looking at potentially 2 different routes, but a downtown safety program. We've noticed an increase in, we've always had a certain number of unhoused in downtown, and we know the community, and we have, kind of standards in the way that things run in the downtown area, but we've noticed an uptick in the past 6 months, kind of getting beyond the level of what makes people feel safe, and so we want to be proactive in ensuring that we have some sort of models on the road about how people should behave and all of those things. So the downtown safety program is being utilized in other downtowns, Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, San Antonio. Austin's program had, I think, 90% voluntary compliance once they were notified of the rules. Of course, we want to make sure that we're working with the police department, so we have a meeting scheduled on Thursday to go over those details and kind of come together on exactly what the right proposal is. But this is the dollar amount that we're looking at proposing based upon what our understanding of a program like this would cost.
Good.
Cool. Park sound installation. So this is something that we've seen in other community parks. We spend a lot of money, private sector money, and TERS activation for the infrastructure that we have to install to execute all of this. But there's just something missing, so we want to go ahead and add the sound component to it. It'll enable us to have more proactive activity in the parks and just a better overall experience. And this is something we try to set up for when families come downtown, for when people come home to visit for the holidays. We want these in really good condition, so it shows that we care about the condition of our community and we leave a good impression. So we're recommending this. And then Taylor Street, whenever the detour was installed by TxDOT, this became our new entryway street into the downtown area. It is in dire need of repair, so it's $432,000 for a mill and overlay for the street. I believe it's all the way from Lower Broadway to Shoreline is the parameters of this program.
Yeah.
That's it? Oh, yes.
I'm not in control.
Oh, I know, somebody said. As somebody that travels down Taylor Street multiple times a day, is there a way, I guess, that they could, maybe we can do this offline, but if they could just extend it all the way down to water, because just so to allow them to go straight and just cut that off altogether. Whereas where we're turning on to, let's say, for example, because when I come downtown to work, I go all the way and I turn up, obviously I take the turn.
Okay, just making sure that wasn't mine.
Yeah.
'Cause it didn't, okay.
Anyway, what is it? So when I turn on to Mesquite, right? I turn on to Mesquite, and then I've got that curve.
Mark, would you ask the gentleman to step outside the council chambers to do that?
Anyway, he's probably trying to figure it out. Anyway, what happens is I take the curve I'd go down Mesquite, and it's really awkward with that turnaround, and so then I've got to merge from Mesquite onto Taylor to turn right. Okay, it's just really awkward the way it is, and then even though it's getting used a lot, it's still
Are you talking about behind the Caller Times building, how you have to loop around the Caller Times building?
No.
Okay.
I'm talking about, like, let's say, for example, I'm coming down 37 or to come to my office.
Right.
And so then I'm going to take a right onto, is it Mesquite? Yeah.
Onto Mesquite, correct?
Yeah, I take a right onto Mesquite, and then I encounter that barricade, and I still have to stop, which is kind of ridiculous, and they're pulling people over for not stopping. So then I pull over, I have to, and maybe we need to talk to Ernie about this, it's a bigger deal. But then, it's an awkward situation. I stop, even though all those barricades are there, and then I have a short period of time to be able to get into the right lane to turn right into Taylor, right? Which to me is dangerous in itself.
Yeah.
Because I'm to go back up the bluff.
That's a dangerous move.
So my thing is that I would think that you would just cut off Mesquite altogether, and then take me down to Man, just to either one way or the other. I mean, the thing is that I agree that we need to make those improvements. I joke around with my staff all the time when we go to lunch and we're driving down here, and they're always telling me that Taylor Street is just horrible. And I said, yeah, you know anybody from influence on the city council? Maybe they could do something around here. So I know it needs to be repaired regardless, but the situation is still difficult, and it still needs to be worked through. I'm sure, I'm sure there's some people in the audience that would be happy to comment as well, because like I said, I do it every day, and I go up and down Taylor Street, and I know it's difficult for House of Rock, and whatever the situation is. And then same thing. Go to Frida's frequently, then have to come around. And it's just.
I think we can definitely work with traffic engineering and public works to try to just analyze it and see how we're working on the implementation. I will say the biggest thing is just the access to businesses. So whenever the original proposal was to cut it off at Twig Street, I think there were like 30 businesses that potentially would be impacted in downtown. When people get deterred from it, they don't circle back. Sometimes they'll just leave downtown because it has a complicated street grid. But we can definitely have more conversations about it.
I think the thing is, but I guess one of the things is that, I'm not coming up with a solution. I don't have the solution. I'm just saying that there needs to be, I think all the quick fixes that TxDOT has done has not been something that is adequate for what we need for the community.
Sure.
Granted, is it going to change? It's obviously all going to change once the bridge comes down.
Yeah.
But there needs to be, obviously Rudy's there every day. Rudy, I'm sure it's difficult for Rudy to walk down because I know he does that regularly, so, I don't know that, I hate to create more work for you, and I know this is probably, we're talking about budget right now, and I'm not saying that we don't need to improve, we do need to improve Taylor Street, but until we come up with, I'm just saying it's not a viable solution what we're doing.
Well, and I think that we can, given the direction, we'll work with the city staff, because I wouldn't have the ability to influence traffic patterns. It's not in my,
No, but you're the vendors that are there and the economic impact of downtown. What is it? And I think that's the challenge, is that we've never adequately communicated with the businesses of downtown or the users of downtown when we're trying to figure that out.
Yes. Okay, we'll work on it. If it is a pressing problem, so we definitely we'll start working with the new team and start coming up with some solutions.
I got a lot of anecdotal information. I remember one time some lady had a flat, and it was very difficult for her, and fortunately, police officers came to her attention. Anyway, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the whole. I agree with Councilman Barrera. I don't access it as much as he does, but when I have, the whole barrier thing is confusing, because when you come up there, you go, well, do I stop or do I keep going, or, so we need to look at that with our traffic engineering people. Councilman Hernandez.
I wanted to mention something about how I went to Art Walk for the first time at the beginning of July. I'd never been.
Nice.
Okay. So I ran into Sylvia Campos, actually. So that was my first time at Art Walk. And I was amazed at the scope of it. It was really something amazing. And I know this is kind of separate from the tours, but I wanted to heap lots of praise onto you and your organization for that work, because that's the first time I'd actually been there. I'm old now. I don't hang out with
Well, it's great.
music
You can bring
singing.
the kids. It's a great time for the whole.
Yeah, my kids don't want to hang out.
No,
with me.
okay.
Not just them.
I was waiting for it. No, but anyway, just, the accomplishments, some of the projects that are here as part of the tours is just an excellent work. And, the revitalization of downtown starts somewhere, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. So I wanted to go ahead and I'm not one to hand out praise regularly, so I wanted to make sure I put that out to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our team works very hard, and we very much appreciate that.
Might want to test his fever.
Okay,
That's it.
that's
I
it?
think That's it. right?
Anything else? Any other questions?
It is pretty, they do great job.
Yeah.
Actually, before we conclude, if we can bring the presentation back up, and I just want to do a final recap of the projects that Alyssa just mentioned. Here we go. The ones that you just mentioned, the ADA improvements, the Illuminato, downtown safety parks installation, and Taylor Street, are for a total of $1.76 million. But I just want to reiterate that these particular projects are not included on the original requested budget that was presented at the beginning. Here we go. So the total expenditures, if you guys choose to include these, it would increase the budget, the expenditures portion of the 7.8 for an additional $1.7 million. There is an expected fund balance.
Would increase the 7.8 by an additional 1.7? Okay.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay.
But I do want to point out that we're expecting a ending fund balance of 3.6. So I just want to make sure that I reiterate that.
The piers, docks aren't included here either.
Oh, yes, and the docks are also not included in this particular budget here with the total expenditures.
Yeah. Okay, so you're going to have to go back and explain that now. Heather, what does that mean?
So if you go, so looking at the total expenditures here, so under those would fall under our one-time special projects. And so right now, you see that's a $55,000 budget. We would add the 1.7 in the requested budgets for the downtown management requested projects, along with the amount for the piers to that amount. And so that would increase the total expenditures by almost $2 million for the year. I'm sorry?
So we'll have about 1.6.
Exactly, in the current year funding, yes. Yes. So it would be the addition of the $218,000 for the marina boat ramps, along with the 1.767 for the DMD
So if we
requested.
approve this, you're going to readjust those numbers?
Exactly, yeah. So what we normally do is that we wait for you to tell us which projects you want to have included, and we don't include those in the base budget. Once you say, yes, please move forward with those, we include that with the base budget that is presented to City Council for approval.
Okay. I would suggest next time you have a second sheet that shows what it would.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
We will do that, no problem.
All right. Any questions? Yeah, Councilman Roy? Oh, yeah, and Rudy, you're next. Sorry. Go ahead, Rudy. I'm sorry.
Couple of comments, couple of questions. I guess the first thing I want to understand is Taylor Street, and I walk up and down Taylor Street in order to go to Art Walk and go to Goldfish and the bus and all those activities down there. But Taylor Street has been in that condition for quite a while. It's now more visible because you've got traffic coming off of 37 and is the entrance to downtown now. As Councilman Barrera mentioned, it is difficult to maneuver that shift from the left lane to the right lane, particularly during the First Friday Art Walk, when there's so much traffic coming in off of the 181 and trying to get to Art Walk. So there needs to be something done. I certainly, because I live down there, I certainly want to see Taylor Street improved. But we do have a streets program, and based on the condition of Taylor Street, and like I said again, it didn't get like that overnight. So Taylor Street should have been on a list of streets to fix. And here, the concern that I have, not just with the Taylor Street improvement, but also with some of the other infrastructure stuff we're doing, there was a time when the marina improvements were being done by the initiatives that Peter Davidson had at the time. The marina superintendent went out and got grants in order to be able to get some of those docks and some of those opportunities down the marinas done. And now it looks like if we're taking monies from the TERS in order to be able to do these improvements or these fixes, there's going to be less money left in order to be able to really generate activity downtown, like, say, for instance, downtown living initiatives. I think that's an activity that we're going to need to continue to have monies in there for in order to be able to get people living downtown. At the end of the day, it's not likely that downtown is going to have the commercial activity it had years ago when it was our main central shopping district. And so it's going to take people living downtown in order to be able to have the activity level that we're going to need to have in order to sustain downtown. Now, Del Mar College's participation in the downtown TERS and wanting to see an active central or downtown area for people to go and have a good time. The interest is so that the people that we're training, the people that we're educating, continue to want to stay and live in Corpus Christi. And so again, when we take money from the TERS over the long term, I'm all right with the budget either way, but at the end of the day, we need to look forward and making sure that, like Councilman Gil Hernandez talked about, the ADA and some of the monies that are available to be able to take care of some of those ADA ramps that you need to have down there, and the fixing of the sidewalks. And certainly in the marina, I think that, again, there are grants available. There's probably some monies for some of the areas were affected by some of these storms and future storms that we can actually look at applying for. But when we take I want to say the route or the path of least resistance and just take money from the TERS, then that's going to leave us less money to be able to invest in downtown living initiatives and programs like that. I don't know, but looking at this budget and going forward, I don't know how we're going to have enough. When we look at the ending balance of 1.6 million, I just don't see how we're going to be able to fund some of the initiatives that have been laid in front of us, like, say, for instance, unless you can answer the question of whether we've got money set aside already for the 600 building and the additional living spaces that's going to bring to Corpus Christi.
So as it stands right now, we do have sufficient, but on future reserves. So right now, the 600 building is, we don't pay out until it is finished, and we anticipate that the 600 building wouldn't actually, if it was to move forward even today, it would be several years before it would be finished. So based off of our cash flows and based off of our commitments, there are sufficient funding to continue awarding. We will also be bringing forward to the committee and to the city council the extension of the TERS past 28, and so we'll continue to receive that money in there. And just remember, we already have $750,000 that is budgeted within the current budget for future initiatives. So the budget not only includes those things that we already have commitments for, but also an additional $750,000 for new programs that are new projects that come forward. So it's not just that we have just the available fund balance, but there is a capacity within the budget for any type of new improvements that come forward for consideration.
Okay, I'd be real happy to see that 750 kept and make sure that but if we do get some additional activity in terms of people, I'm going to say converting existing buildings to housing units, I certainly think that if we needed more than 750, we need to make sure that we
do,
in a position to be able to.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, looking at those future revenues, any project that we're to start today is probably going to be at least 2 years before it gets paid out, and so we keep looking forward to those revenues.
So anything that's done downtown is riskier than an investment made on the south side or in the Padre Island SPID corridor. Again, as most bankers know, again, you have to look at things and say, hey, what's the likelihood that particular project is going to succeed? So all downtowns that have had some significant improvement has taken a combination of public investment, public funds in order to create and mitigate some of those risks, and then also being able to to partner with the private sector that can actually bring those projects to fruition. So again, thank you very much for listening, hearing me out, but thanks for answering the question.
No, good points, Rudy. Yeah. Councilman Roy?
So a lot of the things that Rudy talked about in Gill, that's kind of when I was looking at the sidewalks and asking some of those questions. My concern, you know, when I talk to developers and future projects and a lot of the ideas in terms of downtown, I think there's a lot that's going on. I mean, we've got, you know, the theater that's looking at trying to come up with ways to be able to rehab that. We've got some other activity in terms of some hoteliers that want to continue to build down there. There's a lot, and we're fortunate that it's robust. And the nice thing, too, is that I think that the attitude of the business owners have changed. When I say changed, 20 years ago, when an establishment opened up, sometimes they thought, okay, if I get a 3 or 4 year run, it's a good run. But now, when I talk to a lot of the business owners, they're looking at it's a permanent footprint to be able to be there, and they're looking at long term, what they can do to survive. So with that, I think it's important because, you know, I hear all the time where people say, oh, well, we don't need another bar or restaurant downtown or whatever the case is. But there is a lot of diversity there, and I can see that. My own son came home from Europe this week, and he was like, oh, my God. He goes, I can't believe what's been done down here since I was here the last time. And so, you know, 24-year-old that's excited about downtown and comparing it to, you know, Los Angeles and finding some things that he had interest in, that was, I'm like, we're making steps in the right direction. But I think we need to be conservative. And so one of the things I want to see, I know we talked about a few of those things that we're not going to use, the funds that we're not going to use. And I think we also need to be able to see that bottom line number so that we can really compare apples to oranges. But I worry about having $1.6 million in the coffers because the fact that it seems like everything that happens recently is never on budget. And there's always surprises. And those are the things that I want to make sure that begin. How many times have we been where we had to go back and toward the end, the developer or contractor or whatever has said, oh, I need more funds. You know, I need more funds. And so I think we really need to take a look at that and make sure that we have enough money to be able to do those important projects and not rely on the low-hanging fruit. I mean, you mentioned that you don't have the bandwidth to do grant writing. Probably an important investment that either we continue to give that portion over to the city or in the future, you know, I think grant writing is going to be an important part of what you do. Because I think it should be, especially when it comes to sidewalks and things of that nature, it should be one of the first things you look at. So, you know, that's my concern. We've got tremendous momentum right now, and I don't want to lose that momentum because all of a sudden we can't tackle a big project. We got to turn something away.
I guess one of the things I will add is, you know, the great thing about having those new projects come on is that our revenues are going to continue to increase. And so while we have a certain we've had smaller increases in our revenue over the last several years, especially with the new construction. We have the new hotel that'll be coming on. We've got several renovations that are major renovations, not just some, you know, interior renovations that will increase those tax values. And so we are anticipated that we will continue to see that revenue growing year over year due to the investment within the downtown.
Anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have one other comment to add to the grant writer. When I was looking for monies for sidewalks, I was told that the university has a grant writer program. So I did reach out to Dr. Kelly. Is that okay? And so very informative, and I would just, advise or suggest that y'all do the same, because there are students out there that are willing to help out and do this. So
Sure.
please do reach out.
Yeah, we're spoiled here at the city. You guys are spoiled because at the county, whenever we would talk about doing a project, our grant writer was at every county commissioner court meeting. Mm-hmm. And the first thing we would do is say, go get us some money. Because there's lots of money out there, and we don't do that here. And I've complained about that since I came to the council. I was amazed we don't have. When I came here, the city did not have a central grant writing position. We let every department write their own grants. Well, that's fine for those departments, but the money that we leave on the table because we don't have somebody looking out after the holistic spending that takes place is a missed opportunity, and still is to a great extent.
Yeah.
But I along with Board Member Garza's comments, why are we spending $400,000 out of the TERS budget to fix Taylor Street? Why is that not being budgeted in our streets program for this next year's budget?
So that it was not something that was in their work plan. And so to get that moved up more quickly, we're proposing that we use TERS funding for it.
No, I understand the reasoning, but has it ever, I mean, as bad as Taylor Street is and some of the other streets in downtown Corpus Christi, where are we at on program? And I guess that's probably an appropriate question for another meeting, but we need to look at that.
Okay. But that was the reasoning behind it, is that we did, Alyssa did reach out to Public Works and we talked with them, and Taylor was not in the immediate future. And so we went ahead and this is a funding that we could utilize to go ahead and get that done sooner than later. And so we felt like that, especially with that being the gateway into downtown, that it was important to go ahead and get that done and move it up in the cycle.
All right. That's all I have. Anybody else questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Michael. Councilmember Humder.
Waiting for here we go. So I'm presuming that our grant writers are going to be listening to this meeting, or y'all are going to relay the information, and they're going to attempt to do everything that's been requested up here going into this vote.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and just to clarify, we have one grant writer. So we do have her.
Correct. But we also have utilized some of our local partners for grant writing too. So I don't know if that's something. And speaking of that, Alyssa, your $400,000 street, as much as I do agree with Councilman Pusley, if you have any tips for our streets department on pricing, please let us know.
Yeah. So just to clarify, this was a quote given by, this will be done by our streets department.
Awesome.
So, yes, we worked with them on that quote.
Little sarcasm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay.
If I may, just one final point on the grants conversation. I actually discussed this with the team about, second, third weekend, that I'm really heavy on grant writing, really heavy on trying to make sure that we maximize public dollars with, whatever's available out there through the state or federal. So we actually just started working with the grants division to seek out for one grant through EDA, but this is certainly something that we can look into further. Just personal philosophy, I think that we can always maximize public dollars through.
Well, I'll give you an example. This city has one grant writer, the county has 3.
Yeah, county is definitely
We need to take a vote on this, as in for the grant purposes?
No, that's something we're not agenda to do today, but it's something that it's something we need to seriously look at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So anyway, the all-in general fund budget of the county this year will be around $166 million. That's nothing, and they have 3 grant writers. So anyway, moving right along. Rebecca has informed me that she believes we need to have an amendment to this budget to include those additional funds so we can approve it as amended.
So we're including, the DMD projects and the city projects for 2025 as listed here to the base budget.
Okay.
So it'd be a motion to amend those project lists to the base budget.
Okay, so I need an amendment to include those additional projects into
Yeah, the marina boat dock ramps as well as the DMD requested projects of ADA improvements, Illuminando, downtown safety, park sound installation, and Taylor Street.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the budget as, to amend the budget as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And now we will approve the budget
As
correctly.
amended,
I
yes,
need a
sir.
motion to approve the amended
I
budget.
move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we're done. It passes. And is there anything else to come before the board? Okay, if not, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Well, sure were a lot of excuses.